welcome to the Strategic Success Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Fricke. Thanks for tuning in. Bill, I am very excited to have you on this episode of the Strategic Success.
Not as excited as I am to be on your show. I love you, and this is really, really great. So thank you, Courtney, for inviting me.
Look, I'm excited. You're in for a treat. Buckle up now.
Because she's that good. The first time I met her, I fell in love with her and said so to her at the time. I said, I don't know who you are, but I really love you. I said, I need to get to know you more. And I did, and I have.
Well, look, it has been a joy and a thrill and also a lot of laughter for years now since we've been getting to know each other more. But for the people who don't have the pleasure of knowing you, Bill, who are you? Where do you stake your tent at here in America? What do you do in real estate?
My wife and I, my wife is Kim Cook, and we are a mom and pop real estate investor, nothing really fancy. We've just done it for a long time. I happened to find three really good teachers way back in 1997, 1998. That was Jack Miller and Dyke Spotiford and Pete Fortunato. I started going to them back then. I went to them pretty much every time they were teaching. And I just kept going back to them over and over and over to learn the language of creative deal structuring. My wife and I have rental property. We're also lenders. I do a lot of option work. And we sold our horse ranch in Adairsville, Georgia back in 2018. We moved into a motorhome. So that was 6 years ago. So we've been traveling the country in our motorhome ever since. And I think we're in the process. Kim has decided that she wants to make home base Venice, Florida. And so we're going to settle there, it looks like, sell the motorhome and actually move back into a house. Most of my investment properties are in a 5-mile circle around the Cartersville, Georgia Walmart. So that was my main area. We bought most of our properties from door knocking. I've been door knocking for a living, where I knocked on someone's door and got invited into their house. I've been doing that for more than 50 years. So since I was 12, it's pretty much all I've ever done. And nothing special about us. We did maybe 10 to 13 deals a year. We kept a lot of our properties. We built up our rental portfolio. And then in 2016 and 17, I sold off a lot of the houses and took back owner financing. Not the smartest thing I could have done, but I was sure we were.
May or may not be a joke or two out there that exist around.
A lot of jokes out there. But anyway, that's kind of who we are. Nothing fancy, just we got out and we went to work.
What does the what box on your shirt mean?
It was a story that comes from Pete Fortunato, who many of us know, who has been one of the three primary teachers I told you about. And a long, long time ago, around 2003, 2002, I was working on a deal, and it involved 4 heirs, and my offer gave each heir what they wanted, but there was 9 moving parts to the deal, and it was gonna be a complicated deal, and I knew I was gonna probably lose the deal when I presented it. And I called up Pete and said, need help with this one. And he reworked it it went to like 2 moving parts to the offer. And I presented and they accepted. And Kim and I still have that rental house today. But at the time, for 13 years, I wrote a real estate investing newspaper column that was published throughout Georgia. And I wrote a column about this particular deal. And it was Pete Fortunato, the greatest outside the box thinker. We've all heard the phrase outside the box. So that's what I called it. And I ran in the paper, I cut it out, I sent it to Pete Fortunato, the greatest outside the box thinker. And he sent me back a 2-word email when he got this column that I wrote about him in the paper. And the 2-word email just said,
what box?
And I ended up going down to see him and spending a day with him to explain to me. And basically it was, we cannot reach our full potential as creative deal makers if we are thinking we're working outside of some box, because we're chained to that box, we're dragging it with us because we think there is a box. And Pete said, you'll never reach your full potential until you realize there's not a box.
Right.
And so with his 2-word email of what box, it actually turned into a course that Dykes and Pete and I taught back in 2007, 8, 9. That turned into the Captains of the Deal cruise that the 3 of us did for 8 years. And now it's back to being a 2-day seminar I teach on advanced creative deal structuring.
You see, so many people, and I love that story, so many people think creative deal making is subject to and seller finance, right? They kind of whittle it down.
Those can be involved.
Right. And then there's the people who might do a subject to deal, they might do a seller finance deal. And then you've got this crew of people who are hyperly creative. The deal, if it's not creative and complex, they don't want to touch it, right? Like boring is maybe cash offers, right? And it's thinking outside the box. Now, Pete, one of my greatest mentors as well, and Bill, I see you as a mentor as well, and I've always enjoyed our time together, learning from you. The first time I met you was when I was attending a What Box class, right? And a huge part of that is, as a creative deal maker, we have to learn more tools in our tool belt. And so one of the things you mentioned in there was options. Let's talk through that. What is an option, like plain and simple? Because people who may have been doing seller financing and subject to deals for a year, who might be considered an experienced creative investor, most of the time have no idea what an option is. Or they think they don't know what it is.
An option, what most people know about options is a lease option. In other words, you have a house, you lease it to someone, and you give them the right to buy it at some point in the future. So it may also just be a lease purchase. So instead of using an option contract, a lease and an option contract, you're using a lease and a purchase and sale agreement. So, but basically you have a house, you bring in tenants, they have the right to buy it. An option, there's two different tools at work. The lease gives them use of the property,
right,
and the option gives them the right to buy it at some point in the future, pre-agreed to price, pre-agreed to terms. And that's the extent of most investors' knowledge. Most investors have never done a lease option. They may be able to talk about what it is, but they've never actually done one. And from Jack Miller, I started learning about options back in about 1999 from Jack Miller. Options are so much more than that, but the basic is an option is a right to purchase a property. You pre-agreed to price and terms. It's just that. And then you talk about ways to secure the option to make sure that the person can't renege on the agreement that you have with them. Another part of the option agreement is it's usually done with someone who does not want to sell. And that's the big difference, because with most investors, they're looking for people who want to sell quickly, and the investors wanting to make a quick turn profit. So most people get into investing as wholesalers or flippers. Most being wholesalers because they don't even buy the property. And the idea of doing a deal with someone who does not want to sell, that's just not
right.
That's just not part
There's
of
no
what they are.
immediate profit.
They need to have right now money because they're starting off, and they need to have money coming in right now.
Yeah. So what got you in? So apart from Jack teaching it, so you getting exposed to an option, because up to this point you may have never heard of an option, and that's often the feedback I get is, well, other than a lease option, not familiar with it, but other than getting exposed to it by Jack, what got you into personally as an investor doing options?
Well, I'm a door-to-door guy, and so I'm knocking on people's doors, and a lot of the people I was talking to, maybe they were having a problem, maybe they were facing foreclosure, maybe they had a roof that needed to be replaced, maybe their air conditioner wasn't working, maybe the hot water heater was out, maybe the house had to be painted. I was running into these situations that the people didn't have the money to go fix. And then Jack had talked about, why not, in exchange for putting a new roof on someone's house, you get the right to buy it at some point in the future. And that allowed you to capture that property's appreciation. And maybe if you worked it out right, you could also capture the amortization. So in other words, your purchase price was not $170,000. Maybe it was for the then balance of the mortgage, what meant as the seller pays the mortgage down, your purchase price is lowering, month by month by month. But over time, the property is also going up in value. So maybe the fair market value of the house today is 170, and you agree to buy it for the then balance of the mortgage. But with each month's passing, the mortgage is going down, but the appreciation is going up. So you create more and more equity. So a house that may be very thin today, 10 years from now, can be a $50,000 to an $80,000 profit.
And this is huge because how many investors come across someone who doesn't want to sell today and they think, oh, there's nothing in that,
And walks away.
and they walk away.
All the marketing, all the time, all the effort that went into this. And maybe the option is not for them, but what if they got a property, they got an option on a property, and then wholesaled or flipped the option agreement? Because there's people out like me out there. I would love to have someone bring me an option, let me buy it. And of course I'd pay somebody a profit for that.
I think, so I often say people do deals. The deals they do today are directly related to their skill set. So when all I know how to do was to make a cash offer, what did I do? I went around and made cash offer. Oh, you don't want to take a cash offer, or a cash offer doesn't work for your situation? Sorry, next person, right? And so a big part of that is upping, your skill set. But it's also what I've found, and this is something I think that you're really great at talking about, which is immersion into culture. So I know you're doing Duolingo. You still on your Duolingo?
I'm at 1,006 days as of this morning. So I've been learning Spanish.
Tell me something in Spanish.
Hola.
I love you.
No, but my first language was actually Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And when I moved to the States, I spoke Spanish and Thai, no English.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned English because we were in Enterprise, Alabama. My dad was stationed at Fort Rucker, and I had been overseas that whole time, so I was not around English speakers. Mm-hmm. And I lost my language of Spanish. I was born in Barranquilla, Colombia, so my first language was Spanish. And about 3 years ago, I decided I want my language back.
Yeah.
And so I started taking Duolingo is where I started. Kim and I spent a month in Spain last fall. This summer, I'm going to go down to probably Panama. Not sure where I'm going to go, but they do 5-week immersion schools.
Yep.
Where for 5 weeks, I will go to school during the day. The classes end somewhere around 2 or 3, and then you go out with another teacher into the city and you walk around to the different stores and you're applying what you're learning, and then in the evening you're staying with a Spanish-speaking family.
Yeah.
But for 5 weeks. And so where my vocabulary has grown huge because I'm not speaking with someone on a regular basis, I still don't, I understand the language much better, especially when they write it out for me, but I need to learn the language. And the only way to do that is you have to be around it all the time. And creative deal structuring, all it is a language.
Yeah.
If you're a pilot, that's another language. If you're a doctor, that's another language.
Right. If you picked up playing pickleball, whatever,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And so you talk about getting immersed in the creative culture. I love that because in order to be a creative deal maker, one of the best things you could do is go get around other creative deal makers.
Absolutely the best thing you can do.
It is. And so.
And you can't just watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
You have to be in the room with people. You got to talk about it. It's like, you get around 3 or 4 other people and you get a whiteboard and say, okay, I'm working on this deal. And you say to yourself, you say as a group, okay, what document, what are the different ways this deal can be structured? And you list those deals down. And you say, what are the different ways this deal could be funded? Because it's not just one way to fund a property. So how can it be funded? And once we have it, what can we do with it? What are the different things we can do with this property? Yeah. And then as a group, you sit down and say, okay, let's pick one way we're going to buy it, one way we're going to fund it, and one exit strategy. And then let's actually write those documents out. And because you're sitting there with 2, 3, 4, 5 other people, and you're doing the documents right then and there, that's when you're learning. And right. Then go out and go get in front of sellers.
I think, so it's so critical. So many people think like, oh man, there's just so much when it comes to creative deal structuring. They get overwhelmed, right? Or
we all.
Oh yeah.
First day of Spanish, you sit down and someone's speaking Spanish at you. You're immediately overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Of course. And going back to the language analogy, you're not going to go take a 1 weekend class and walk away fluent in Spanish.
Right.
You'll walk away knowing how to say hola,
right.
Adios,
right.
Buenos dias, buenas noches, buenas tardes,
right.
Uno, dos, tres.
Yeah.
It's just the basics, but that's where it begins. And then it's layers of a cake after that.
Exactly. So, I lived in Thailand 11 years ago. And so I lived in a city of 500,000 and I saw, it was not a tourist town. So I saw less than 10 tourists the whole year while I was there in a very large city. And so I took language class Monday through Friday because if I was going to get my hair cut, if I was going to, maybe go, I don't know, do something, maybe a doctor's visit or whatever, I had to go get my vocabulary terms, right?
Yes.
I could do most of my meals to a degree, right? But like I often had to go there for just day-to-day life stuff. And so, learning the language day in and day out. So first of all, that's 5 days a week education. So that was huge, right? I jumped in.
And
Plus,
it is not like a Spanish or an Italian or French that's sort of kind of like English. You're dealing with an Oriental language that's nothing
yeah.
like English.
And it's tonal, so if I said in a different
Yes.
tone, it's 5 different meanings.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I digress because so it was. But guess what? Next thing I know, I started dreaming in Thai. At one point, I was going to the movie theaters with my Thai friends that were in Thai, and they were having English subtitles, but then I was able to do it without the subtitles. And I caught on to a certain percentage of, I caught the punchline of the joke before someone had to interpret it, And so I didn't have to, and that's what, it's working the muscle, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't ever give their efforts time to compound. Like, go get in this. It takes time. Think of it, someone today at this conference said something, think of it as a craft, right? And you're spending time learning the ins and outs of the craft. And so by getting around Crave Investors, where again, not on YouTube, not just on one isolated little segment online, but somewhere where you can bounce ideas off on people. So many times when I'm stuck on a deal, like how you mentioned you called Pete on that one deal, I'll call someone and say, hey, look, I'm thinking about this on a deal. What are your thoughts, right? And it gets those cylinders firing, right? And I start thinking. And so there's something that you often talk about, which is called structure stacking. Do you want to explain what that is for folks?
Well, yeah, because let's say you're someone who wholesales or you flip. Okay, so when you go to make your offer, in your world, the whole world wears a pair of size 8 brown shoes.
Yeah.
And if they can't take the size 8 brown shoes, you can't, there's no sale there and off you go. So in another phrase I use all the time is the big damn hammer. Yeah. So if all you do is wholesale or flip, you have to buy at a price low enough that allows you to make a profit. Yeah. And the person who you're going to sell the property to, they have to make a profit after all holding costs and expenses. Yeah. So let's say the house is worth $200,000, then your offer is going to be somewhere around $100,000 or maybe $80,000. Yeah. But it can't be anywhere close to $180,000, or we're going to take it over subject to the mortgage. You can't do any of that because you have to turn and burn on the property, which means it needs a ton of equity. So all your offers are going to be pennies on the dollar. There's no structure stacking. You're just using the big damn hammer. But as you progress, as you learn the language of creative deal structuring, the reality is our job is not to buy, sell, or rent houses. That's not what we do. Our job is to solve people's real estate problems. Yeah. That's what we do. And before you can solve the problem, you've got to understand the problem, which means you're sitting at the table with someone and you're asking a lot of questions, getting the information. I use something called a T-bar. So I'm gathering information on something called a T-bar. And then I'm thinking to myself, what, with the problem that they're having, they will tell me the solution. They won't tell me what tools to use, but they'll say, this needs to happen to make it better for me. And then my job is to open up my creative deal structuring toolbox and then take out the tools that allow that to happen. And that's how I'll put together my offer. Now, oftentimes I'll make that offer and they're going to say, yeah, that's okay, but I don't like this or I don't like this other thing. Okay, so I'm going to put some of the tools back and take out different tools. So maybe I'm going to do a subject to deal, which is where we're going to buy the house, leave the seller's mortgage in place, agree to make the payments. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't work for them. They're like, no, I need to buy a house next year, so therefore we can't do a sub to deal. Okay, so I may put the subject to deal away and take out a master lease with an option to be able to buy it at some point in the future. And the option may include some sort of owner financing or note. So based on what they're telling me in the back and forth, that's how I structure. But what structure stacking is with most of the deals that I do, 3, 5, 9 different deal structuring tools are used to make a single transaction work. So it's not just a sub-to deal. It's not just a master lease. There's a number of tools at play, and that's what actually happens in the real world.
And so many times people, they get so stuck in a box. right? And as Pete wants us to do is he wants us to burn down the whole box structure, right? The reality there is, for example, on a subject to deal, plenty of times I will buy something subject to an existing loan, but I might use private money from an everyday individual.
Yep.
You lend, right? So, for example, maybe I have to catch up the loan. Maybe I have repairs. Maybe I have to pay the seller their equity. So maybe I could instead, if it's paying the seller their equity, maybe they'll take payment. So I could do a seller carryback for the second.
Yes.
Right? And so many people think it's.
And then that has to be secured. So now you're dealing with a mortgage or a deed of trust.
Yes, exactly. And
And
so
maybe also you're taking over the first sub two. So now you have a subject two wrapped into that.
yes, and all these things. And so the idea with creative deals, people love it because you can get into properties with little to none of your own money, right? There's the hurdle of the money part can often be solved with the right tools and knowing how to use them. And so, but at the end of the day,
And giving part of the deal away. Bringing in the gray hair, bald heads.
Yeah.
Bring in the people that have the money and have the know-how, because a lot of times when you're a newer investor, you don't have the know-how or experience. So when I was coming up, oftentimes I turned to the experienced investors and gave them part of my deal. And one way to look at that is, well, you're walking away from money, Bill. No, I wasn't. I gave up part of a deal, but I gained their experience in looking over the shoulder. And sometimes they said, Bill, this is a stinker of a deal the way you have it structured. Walk away from it.
Yeah.
So they kept me from doing bad deals.
Yeah.
Maybe they said, let's restructure this a different way.
yeah,
And we structured from a okay deal to a really good deal. But more than that, I was learning real world how to creatively structure. So when I ran across that issue again, the next time I knew better how to solve the problem and what to do. And maybe I still brought them in again, but at some point in time, I didn't need the help because now I had that experience.
and that's huge because so when I was looking to do my first subject to deal.
Yeah.
I found a local, what I respectfully call a gray hair guy, who was an investor first, broker second. And he was the only person I knew locally doing subject to deals. And so I went to him and I said, you can have my first deal. Like, I won't even remain a part of it. I just want to watch you.
So why did you do that?
Well, I didn't know to give a part. To be
I
dead
know,
honest.
but why were you willing to give up the whole?
Well, because here's the thing is, I said, man, if I can just watch him, you know what? I was tactile. I wanted, to stand there, hear him talk to the seller, watch him go through the transaction, do all those things. And because I wanted to learn in the doing, not necessarily in the classroom, although I've always been a big fan of the classroom. And so I remember, his name was Mr. Robert Reed. He's no longer with us, but 6'8". I was like this the entire time as he stood next to the seller. And I remember him talking to them, making the offer, explaining subject to, and how we went through the process. And I learned so much. And at the end of the day, that was huge. But you want to know what? Beyond that deal, he became a stronger ally to me because, number one, I learned a lot. And let's just say, he pulled back the curtain more because I was willing to not just take, but I was also willing to give, right? And I learned so much that he was such a strong ally. And it breaks my heart, but I actually gave his wife, we did a deal and I gave her the profit check, unfortunately, at his funeral. But we stayed all through the years of his, the end of his life, very involved. McDonald's was his satellite office. So there's something with those gray hair guys in McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
But
It's the senior coffee.
yeah, that's
The
probably what it
$1
is.
senior coffee. In case you want to know, it's the $1
That's
senior
what it
coffee.
is. Okay, so we cracked the code here. But yeah, I learned so much. I learned so much from him. And so there's so much into that. So you're talking about this, structure stacking, learning, being willing to, either give up a piece of the deal or give up the deal just to learn. Those things are huge. And respecting, I love how you said listening to the sellers and solving their problems. You talked about making 100 offers.
1,000 offers.
Yes, it's been a long day. 1,000 offers. What was your thought behind that? Because that's the intention, to solve a lot of problems.
Well, I get a lot of phone calls from investors, and they're they're having a hard time, or they're not making it, or they're failing, or they're ready to quit. And I'll get maybe 3 to 8 of those calls every week, and I have for a long time, many years. And I I just kept looking, saying, people think that real estate investing is easy.
Yeah. Hey guys, Courtney Fricke here. We've got Aussie Steve. And look, if you have a deal that needs to get moved, Southeast Louisiana, even in South Mississippi, we're your folks. We are the largest dispo company, really in the greater New Orleans area, even Southeast Louisiana. We have great contacts in South Mississippi as well. Steve, why do we move more deals than others?
Just we're very deep in this market. So Greater New Orleans can be really confusing for national wholesalers. The comps are hard. We change block for block. We got flood zones. We get a lot of hurricanes and the likes. And just a lot of the national platforms don't have the buyers on their list. So we are deep with buyers, but we're deep with relationships, which is really important in this market. So we love JVing with out-of-state investors.
Like I said, we do a ton of business with other investors. So go to homebuyerlouisiana.com/Courtney. Fill out the information, we'll get in touch with you and we'll move this deal along.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
And when I get these phone calls, I can ask 2 questions and get right to the heart of the problem.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them this, I'm gonna ask you 2 questions and we're gonna get right to the heart of the problem. The first question I ask is, how many written offers have you made in the last 30 days? And the answer is 0.
Yeah.
The second question I ask is, how many written offers have you made in the last 12 months? And the answer is almost always less than 10. And they would have said they thought they should do 50 deals their first year. Well, that's crazy anyway.
Yeah.
But how can you do 50 deals when you've only made 10 offers?
Yeah.
It's just, the math doesn't work out. And so my job is to get them out, meeting with sellers, asking the questions, putting together the offers, and understanding that you have to make a lot of offers if they want to succeed. And one of the things I've been wanting to do for the last 2 or 3 years is to go out and make 1,000 written offers. Well, Kim and I were in a motorhome and we're traveling, and then her dad got sick, and so different things have happened, and I haven't been able to go do this. And going into this year, I had a full slate of teaching scheduled. And I guess somewhere around December, I'm looking at this going, I turned 64 this year. And I don't know how much gas is left in the tank, how much longer I want to do this. And I just said, I want to get this done. So I want to do 1,000 written offers. Kim has told me we're moving to Venice. And so
I love how you put that. Kim has told me what we're doing.
Well, yeah, she tells me what we're going to do. So she always picks the house. Anyway, so I want to do these 1,000 written offers because I want 6 more rentals. I bought in 2 so far. So now I'm down to needing 4 more rentals. And I want to find a house for us. But I wanted to do it not so much through door knock, I'm going to go to exchanger meetings. But the thing is, 1,000 written offers. It doesn't matter how you get the 1,000 written offers. I don't care if you knock on someone's door. I don't care if it's a yard sale. I don't care if you have signs out there. I don't care if you have a billboard. I don't care how you get there, but you got to get to that kitchen table 1,000 times and make 1,000 written offers. Yeah. And so I decided this is what I want to do this year. And so I canceled pretty much all my teaching. I called up all the RIAs and said, I'm out. Sorry, I need a year off. And I'm going to go do the 1,000 written offers, take a picture of each offer, give the address so you can follow me on Google Maps and see where I am. I'm working in a very small area in Nokomis and Venice. And follow me around and watch what it takes. And realize I'm going to fail almost every time. That's okay. But in the 1,000 written offers, I will also find a number of deals that will work for us. I'll find contracts to wholesale off. I'll get some houses and probably flip them. I probably will get some deals together and structure them and give them to investor friends of mine like Ed Taylor and say, Ed, here, you just take the property, but I want an option to be able to buy it back from you or buy part of the property at some point in the future. Yep. So I'm going to do all kind of different deals over this year, and I'm just going to put them up on my website and just say, in groups of 25, videos in groups of 25 offers at a time. So 1 through 25, 26 through 50, and so on. And go watch the videos. They're free, but if you want to see what it's going to take to be successful, come watch an old guy make 1,000 written offers.
Now, where can they find that? Because I know, so it's something that you're looking at doing in 2024.
I've already started.
Okay, and where can they find that?
Go to billandkimcook.com. That's our website. Go to Bill and Kim Cook on YouTube. That's our YouTube channel. Go to Bill and Kim Cook on Facebook. It's all the same, Bill and Kim Cook.
There you go. I love that.
Yeah.
And so I love the emphasis here because so many people say, I want to own 50 houses or do 50 deals, but they don't realize the action that is necessary. And that's ultimately what you're talking about. Get out there and do the thing.
If you came to me tomorrow and you said, Bill, in 6 months, I want to run a marathon.
Yeah.
Okay? Today, what's the most important thing you do today? What would I tell you more than anything else? What would I tell you to do today?
Go run.
Go run. Do I care how far you run? No. Run to your mailbox.
Yeah.
And then walk back. I don't care how far you go. Now, tomorrow, what will I tell you should do?
Try to run a little bit
Run
further. Yeah.
a little bit further.
Yeah.
And the next day, and the next day, and the next day. People get caught up into what kind of shoes should I wear and what kind of shirt should I wear. I ran a marathon in 1993. They didn't have YouTube out. I rubbed my nipples off. I didn't know that it was even a thing, but I lost. I'm not making this up. So when I crossed the finish line, my wife's looking at me and I'm bleeding. And I didn't even know that was going on. And she said, what did you do? I didn't know you're supposed to put Band-Aids over your stinking, no one told me that. But the thing was, when I decided to run the marathon, it was, okay, what do I have to do? And I started off by running, down the street and a little bit further, a little bit further, and a little bit further. And I was told by my dad that I couldn't run when I was a kid because I was flat-footed. So my whole life, I was told that I could not run. Yeah. And when I played football, I was a lineman because I was told I can't run. And it wasn't until I was in college that I was dating a girl, and she said, do you want to go for a run? And I was like, I was a collegiate swimmer. And I said, I can't, I'm flat-footed. She goes, what? And I said, I'm flat-footed. People who are flat-footed can't run. And she said, I was one of the best in the state in Connecticut, and I'm flat-footed. And then we went and ran together, and that's when I learned I could run. So same thing, really, all these analogies I'm using is just real estate investing. It's go out and do something. Go out and get with a seller. Don't care how you get there. But if you're going to run a marathon, go run. If you want to learn to swim, get in the pool. If you want to be a real estate investor, get face-to-face with sellers and ask Pete Fortunato's famous question, which is?
Why would you sell a nice house like this?
There you go.
So those things are so critical. So I don't know if I've told you this. So I'm an avid reader. I think you know that. Yeah. I have 2,500 books at home. Me and the books are, yeah, I know that look. When I started dating, I said, honey, me and the books are a package deal. It's, me and the U-Haul of books, right? So I usually read a good amount of books a year, right? This year, I'm refusing to read any books because I'm going through Jack Miller's newsletters. And a huge part of that is things to
Aren't they great?
Oh, my, I'm loving them.
Did you do the ones like 1980, 81, 82? When we were looking at a downturn, when we were looking at increased interest rates 2 years ago.
Started on October 19th. I have 90+% of them. I have 98% of them.
Yeah.
And so I started October 1978.
Do you actually have the real newsletters, or are you going to Cash Flow Depot?
I have a good portion of the originals, but the rest I got from Cash Flow Depot.
Okay, got it.
So I'm going to have you explain about Cash Flow Depot in a little bit, but I'm teeing you up. But so this year, so I started October 1978. I think I have 5 or 6 of them with me for this weekend, just as I'm traveling or this week, reading. And I'm in the 80s, early 80s. So I don't think I'm to 81 yet. So I think I'm in 80, going into 81. I did that because Jack Miller influences me, even though I never met him. But he was the main influence for all my mentors. So why not study him? And I've been in this business for 10 years. I have not been through a downturn, right, until wherever we're at right now in the market.
Had the problem that most investors that are investing today, they started after 2012.
Yeah.
And they think they're investing gods.
Yeah.
Well, back in 2004, 5, and 6, there were a lot of investing gods around, and then 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 happened. And in 1997, there were a lot of investing gods in 97, 98, and 99, leading up to the dot-com break. And then all of a sudden, they also disappeared.
Yeah.
So the slate gets wiped clean, but you've got to have gone through whatever teacher you have. Make sure they've gone through 2 or 3 downturns so they know what to do when the market turns. And what you're going to find is when people haven't been through a downturn, it's Chicken Little and they run for cover.
Yep.
But those of us who have been through downturns, when the downturn happens, we're like,
it's go time.
Baby, man, it is time to buy. It is time to turn and burn on some deals.
I'm getting some of the best deals of my career right now. but yet the market is still difficult. So there's a level that I'm having to also learn how to play defense to survive.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part to it. So for me, a part of my defense plan is studying Jack and through his newsletter, studying the cycles. Do I care about what happened economically? Yeah. Like, I think that's important. But what I care more about is what did Jack do and what did he have to pivot? Who did he have to become to survive in the 70s, 80s, 90s,
Yeah,
2000s?
there was times that he switched to master leasing and options when he was unsure what was going to happen.
Yep.
There was other times when the market was red hot when he was going after the deed, and maybe he was selling and doing owner financing.
Yep.
So when you're going through the old newsletters, look at what was going on with the economy, but not from the point of view of it's going to repeat itself. It's just, okay, as interest rates go up on mortgages, here's what we can do. And as the market really heats up, here's what we can do. You also have his newsletters from 2007 and 8.
Yeah.
So when the market tanks worse than we're ever going to see again, what do you do then?
Because he wrote as a single family home, investor, specifically as a creative investor in that space. And so, and he's obviously, he was nuanced in commercial, various things, but at the end of the day, that was his bread and butter, were single family and creative financing, which is where, that's what I go after. So anyway, so I'm loving all of it.
Jack said that in the world of real estate in general, think of real estate all over the place. Nothing is easier than a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage level ranch in a nice subdivision in a nice area of town. Of all the different real estate, that's the easiest thing to buy, manage, keep, have.
And
everything else is harder than that. So when I heard him say that, if you go look at our portfolio, that's mainly what it is. Now, do I have some split levels? Yes. But most of them are brick ranches, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, or 2-car carport, because they're so easy.
Yeah. So what is a lesson from Jack? So as we start to wrap up here, I'm gonna ask some final questions. What is a lesson from Jack that you love, that you carry with you, that you love telling, a story that you love telling? I know it's hard to pick.
It's really hard to pick. Jack was, he was so good at so many things. Do you have his biography,
Yes.
the unauthorized
Yes.
autobiography, which I thought was funny?
The unauthorized autobiography.
I think the biggest lesson I learned about Jack is when I read that, and how important being in the Air Force was to Jack, much more so than real estate. I thought that biography would be all about real estate investing. And it really wasn't. It was about his passion for travel, and it was his passion for the Air Force, and that helped fuel the travel. But I think if I could nail down the thing that I really learned from him, when he was in his later years, it was in 2009, was the year that he passed. He was sick and I didn't know it. But anyway, we went to his Friday, cheap wine party, and he'd not been 100% for the previous year. So something was up, just didn't know what it was, didn't know how bad it was. And I always asked the gray hair, bald-headed guys 3 questions when I was coming up. And it was, what'd you do right? What'd you do wrong? What didn't you do that you wished you would have done? And with Jack, when I asked him, what didn't you do that you wish you would have done? And he said, I wished I would have quit sooner. And then spent that time with my family and meaningful stuff. And then taking more time down along the way, taking some breaks to go see the things I want to see, do the things I want to do. And again, he was very active, traveled all the time. He didn't rest. He was always out there doing stuff. But that helped me when Kim and I decided to sell the horse ranch and move into the motorhome when we were in our mid-50s. That is where that came from. He said, while you're young, and work hard to get the financial freedom, but go do things. Go do things along the way. And I have a friend of mine named Chad Carson. Do you know Chad? Okay, so Chad Carson wrote a really good book.
Yep.
Now, he's a John Schaub guy.
Yep.
A John Schaub student. But when I read his book that he put out last year, I called up Chad and I said, for newer investors, this is the best book I've ever read.
I think it's Small but Mighty Investor or
Yeah,
something like that.
the small but mighty investor. But he took breaks along the ways where he would just take 6 months off and then take his family to Panama to learn Spanish, or then they go to Spain for 18 months. But he would take breaks from his business to go enjoy the fruits of his labor. And I think that we need to remember that and spend time with family and not be, we live in a motorhome. And I see people pulling next to me all the time. We've been in the motorhome for now, full time now for 6 years. And I'll see someone pull up next to me in a brand new motor coach, $600,000, beautiful. And I'll see someone get out of the motorhome that's maybe 65 to 75 years old, but they didn't take care of themselves. And they're having a hard time hooking up the sewer line or plugging in the thing or getting the jacks going. I've got to go help them. So here they've spent all this money on their dream thing, was to go see America in their motorhome, and now they physically really can't do it. And they may go out on one trip and then they go home and sell this thing they bought because they're too old for it or they're too infirm for it.
Yeah.
Live your life.
Yeah. I think that's critical.
And Jack saw that, and when he said that to me, he said, it's not always about the next deal. Do your deals, get financially free, but when you have enough, enjoy it.
So I have 4 final questions to wrap this up. What did you do right?
We got started. I was terrified to get started. I read Robert Allen's book, Nothing Down, in 1983 or 1994. And I knew that this is what I wanted to go do. I was selling vacuums door to door at the time. And I knew that that spoke to my heart. I had door knocked into a couple people that had rental properties, men that were home during the day, which back then men were never home during the day. They would have 15 rentals or 18 rentals. And I was like, this is what I want to go do. And I was too terrified because everybody around me said that you'll fail. Tenants never pay rent. They wreck your house. This is the worst idea you've ever had. There's no life outside of Electrolux. And when I met Kim, her parents had 3 or 4 rentals, and she was the first one that said, of course you can go do this.
Yeah.
So number one is, I got started. We went and we bought that first rental. And so in the first rental, Kim found it. Kim structured it. Kim funded it. Kim closed it. And then I went and played, right after we closed it, I went and played golf for 3 weeks with my dad. We had a golfing vacation set up, so she did the rehab. So that was the first deal that she and I did together that was all Kim. But from that point forward, once I knew it was possible, off we went.
So then what did you do wrong?
In the big downturn in 2007 and 8, I got scared. I had the tools. I had been investing by that time for 15 years, 17 years, 18 years. I was good at what I did, but I didn't know where the economy was going. And I was working out of fear. We didn't lose any houses. We never missed a mortgage payment. I could have done so many deals during those 2 years. By 2009, halfway through 2009, I got my feet under me, I got my courage back. But I went through about 2 years of being terrified. I was watching the news every day. I was reading the newspaper. Sky's falling. Chicken Little. And I was scared. And that was the biggest mistake I ever made.
The third question you would ask the greater guys, what would you do different?
In 2016 and 2017, when Kim and I knew we were going to go in the motorhome and go travel, at the time we had 35 single-family rentals, almost all of them paid for. We had a mobile home park. We were doing a lot of lending by this time. I held a lot of options. We were financially done. So,
meaning financially free, you guys were good and set.
Do what we didn't, for the rest of our lives, we never had to work again. We had all these capital assets working for us every day. And I made the decision because I thought we were going to go into a downturn in 2018. And so of the 35 houses, we sold 28 of them. And I thought we were at a market peak. timing of the market. And I sold one for cash. I sold 27 owner financing. So it's not like we got rid of the property. It's just I went from having a deed and have a tenant to holding a note and having a payer.
Yeah.
And that allowed us to have the freedom just to leave. I knew how to do this and I didn't. What I should have done is when I sold these 27 houses, not once did I say, in addition to me giving you owner financing on this house, I also want an option to be able to share in the appreciation of this house over time. So one day when you sell it, I want to capture maybe 25% of that appreciation. And because I was given owner financing, they would have done that. But because I was so sure we're going to go into a downturn in 2018, and I was pretty sure I'd be getting most of the houses back, I was lazy. I didn't do it. And I really wish I could go back and redo that. Because all those houses, each of them went up at least $100,000. So you figure 28 houses, $100,000 each.
2.8.
That's 2.8 million.
What did
add in the rents that I didn't have because the rents also doubled.
Yeah.
That was well over a $3 million mistake.
And what did Pete call it?
The Georgia Enrichment Program. He said I deserved an award called the Georgia Enrichment Program Award because I helped so many people make $100,000 each that I gave up.
Yeah.
That there's a sainthood for me somewhere in stupidity. I'd be the saint of for stupid people.
Yeah. But here's the thing in hindsight, we all, apart from what you missed out on, did you structure good deals at the time?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people forget is that you can structure a good deal that's a good deal for you, a good deal for the buyer, right? Tenant buyer, whatever, at the time. And sure, there might be things that in hindsight you would have done differently if you knew, but they can still be good deals apart from maybe the mistiming of the market.
Well, let's look at the real trade. So if I knew then what I know now, yes, I would have done the option. But let's say, do I regret this? Because you asked what would I go back and redo, but I don't have a regret, and here's why. I traded those houses and I bought time.
Yeah.
And so my wife and I have spent the last 6 years in our motorhome, traveling the country from one side to the others, up and down, sideways and left, right, and just everywhere you can imagine we've been. And those memories can't be taken from me, and they can't be taken from my wife. And I'm so happy. It was worth the trade because my wife and I spent that time together. And before, we lived in a 4-bedroom, 3-bath brick ranch on 34 acres with all kind of outbuildings, a horse ranch. And we moved into a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 300 square foot, 0-acre home. And everybody said, oh, you guys boy, man, that marriage is going to come apart. We got closer.
Yeah.
And just to have her always there. So that was a fair trade for me. Yeah. I gave up some money. I gave up some appreciation. I gave up some cash flow. But I built an incredible relationship with a woman who I was put on this earth to marry.
Yeah. And we all love her.
We all love her.
And so, Bill, I always enjoy having conversations with you. And I want you to know that you have been a huge part of my journey. You and I, we talk on the phone. You've helped mentor me in so many ways, not just as an investor, though. And so I'm so thankful for you, especially, you as an educator, you as a mentor, you as an investor, all of those things.
What did I say the payment was going to be?
The payment.
You would call me, I'd help. You would ask me to do something, I would help. But I told you there's going to be a payment involved.
You had to go take action.
Not that you have to take action.
Okay, then I forgot.
You have to pass it on.
Yes.
Which is what you're doing right now.
Yes.
When I was doing this, when I would call Dykes and Pete and Jack, they said, you got to pass it on.
Yeah.
So my job now is I'm passing on to you. Leon's passing on to you. Mm-hmm. So your job is to take this and repackage it with your lessons in the special way that you teach and to pass it on, which is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Paid in full.
I thank you, my friend.
You're welcome, sweetheart.
You know I love you. So
I love you.
How can what's the best way people can get in touch with you? Let's say your website and stuff.
Call me. My phone number is 770-815-8727. Listen, don't text me and say, when's a good time to call you? Just call me. If I'm busy, it's going to go to a voicemail and I'll call you back. But just call me on the phone. Because I'm going to have a lot of questions for you if you do call me.
And where can they watch this 1,000 offer challenge you're doing?
Best place is our website. It'll be there. Again, it's going to be on the YouTube channel too, but it's billandkimcook.com.
Yeah, Bill, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Love you so much.